Well, it looks like the GGBL is officially going to be the number one source of baseball in 2022. Kidding, I'm kidding, I'm kidding, I'm kidding. Kidding. Hopefully Major League Baseball is back by 2022. Lockout and all is happening, as you guys know, as you're well aware. You know what sucks is that every time Major League Baseball, our sport takes one step forward, just one, we take two steps backward. Well, it's gonna be this way actually. Two steps backward. It stinks, man. It sucks. And you know, the people to blame are unfortunately the owners and of course none other than Rob Manfred. Seems like he's always in the middle of these types of things. Yeah, good old Robbie Manfred, just ruining the fun for everybody. So what I wanted to talk about here in this video was going over kind of my thoughts on the lockout and kind of give you guys my thoughts on what I think is happening and of course what this means for baseball in the long haul. Those are going to be kind of my topics, and it's been well discussed. People that don't follow this, they kind of don't really have an idea of what the lockout is all about. And, for those of you guys that do understand what the lockout is talking about, I'm not going to go deep dive into this. You guys are kind of well aware by now. It's been 2 days officially. But I actually loved this. I love this back and forth between Tony Clark, former Detroit Tiger, by the way, is the head of the MLB Players Association. And then you got Rob Manfred. So I love these two quotes. We made a proposal yesterday that, if it had been accepted, I believe would have provided a pretty clear path to make an agreement. So basically, he's putting the MLBPA under the bus here, saying that it's your guys' fault that we're here in this mess here today, which he actually said in his letter as well. We'll get to that in a minute. But Tony Clark responded, "It would have been beneficial to the process to have spent as much time negotiating in the room as it appeared was spent on the letter." That is, yeah. So Jeff Passan says, sick burns aside, the substance of the issues was laid out for the public on Thursday. So let's jump to that letter, by the way. So a letter to baseball fans. This is a letter written by Mr. Robert Manfred, who, for those of you guys, he needs no introduction for most of you. And especially you guys that have been here on this channel for a while, you know how I feel about Rob Manfred Jr. I'm not a fan of this guy. I can't look at this man with any sort of respect for baseball. I'm not for this guy. I think he's a sleaze. I don't think he has the best interest in baseball at heart. I don't know him personally. He might be a good guy. You could have a beer with him and sit down and have a good time with him. But I don't get the vibe that he's good for this sport. I don't think that what he's done with minor league baseball, what he's done with this game, what he's done with baseballs and implementing new rules this season, it's like the speed of play, the rule changes, the things that he's trying to implement with baseball has not been what I feel like has been in the best interest of baseball and the players. And I think it continues on with this lockout and this work stoppage. But I won't read you the whole letter. You guys can read this on your own. The one thing that really stuck out to me is that his animosity towards the players in this letter. And I want to jump down to this section here. We've had challenges before with respect to making labor agreements and have overcome those challenges every single time during my tenure. Regrettably, it appears the Players Association came to the bargaining table with a strategy of confrontation over compromise. That's some fiery words right there. They never wavered from collectively the most extreme set of proposals in their history, including significant cuts to the revenue sharing system, a weakening of the competitive balance tax, and shortening the period of time that players play for their teams. All of these changes would make our game less competitive, not more. So I disagree with Rob Manfred there. I think if you look at some of the things that the players were proposing, the game would be more competitive on the ball field. I do believe that. I think if you're now, as far as front office, if that's what he's talking about, if he's talking about dollars and cents and the way that money's moving around between clubs to clubs and players to players, I think even that would be more competitive on that scale. So let's actually go into some of the things that Manfred is talking about here. And regarding free agency, right? So for those of you guys that don't really know how free agency works in baseball, you officially actually become a free agent once you've had 6 years of service time at the major league level. And for a lot of guys, I mean, say you're playing in college, you're playing at LSU, you get drafted when you're 22 years old, you're just graduating college, you're a senior, you're 22. It's going to take you some time to get to that major league level, to get yourself called up. And by the time you do, you could be about 24, 25 years old. And by the time that you get the call up, you're not really out of that ball club that drafted you, that signed you, that picked you up until you're about 30, 31 years old. And guys, it's no secret. It's no secret. When you turn 30 years old, the weight starts to gain a little bit faster. The reaction time starts to go down a little bit. I would know. 33-year-old out here. It's true. It happens. It happens to everybody. So what the players are arguing here is that they want to get paid faster. They want to starting to get paid earlier. They want to be able to test free agency earlier than what they have been. So they've proposed allowing players to reach free agency after 6 years of service or 5 years and age 29 and a half, which again, right now, usually, I haven't done any research on this, but just kind of feeling it out a little bit, most guys actually reach their 6th year at around the 30-year-old mark. Doesn't happen to everybody, but for most people it does. The league remains steadfast. Anything but 6 years of service time is a non-starter, so they're not budging on that. I would actually want to lower that. I say like 28 years old is usually your prime. Is usually when your prime season starts to hit. You can look this data up. It's out there. Most guys in baseball, for whatever reason, 28 is like the magic number. Like if you're 28, 29, 27, like right in that range, you start kind of hitting your stride. You start kind of hitting your potential, and that's when things really start to click for you. So it's kind of like right near that contract. That contract time is when it starts really hitting for you. But to the players' kind of argument here, again, that 30-year-old mark, you start getting older, a little bit older on the scale. Most teams and organizations, they understand that. They're not going to offer you the type of money that you probably would have gotten when you were 25, when you're 26, when you're 27, right? You were younger back then. You got a little bit more quick twitch muscles happening for you. It doesn't happen a lot when you're about 30 plus years old. You only start to diminish in your production. For the freaks, though, like Buster Posey, Miggy, you name it, Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado, you guys name the types of players out there. You know, those freaks are out there, but a guy like Marcus Semien, like how old is Marcus Semien? I'd want to look that up for sure. He's got to be 30 plus years old, but like, okay, so once you hit 35, 33, 34, 35, like you're not going to get the best contract out there that you probably could have. Arbitration, the system allows players within 3 to 6 years of service, so not after the 6th year when you would actually be in free agent, but between 3 to 6 years of service, you can negotiate your salary for the first time as a professional athlete in baseball. Is a significant point of contention. The union continues to ask for arbitration to begin after the 2nd season instead of the 3rd, so they're just cutting it back a year. And the league proposed a system that would replace arbitration entirely and pay players based on a formula. So what that sounds like to me is the way that the world is working now. It's all based on an algorithm. YouTube's got an algorithm. Call of Duty has an algorithm with their skill-based matchmaking. Like Facebook has an algorithm that determine like what it's going to show you, what kind of posts it's going to show you. Everything's moving towards algorithms at this point. I don't think that baseball should be going that route. I really don't. I think that that's a scary, scary route, especially when you're talking about somebody's pay. Is that algorithm going to be based on players of similar caliber, of similar age, of similar position? How's it all going to work? I would rather not base my pay off a computer algorithm. I'd want to be paid on the type of person that I am, the player that I am, what I'm going to bring to your organization, those types of things. Very personal things, not something that's based on statistics and just numbers, right? Competitive integrity. League offered a draft lottery system for the first 3 picks. This is a way to prevent tanking, apparently. The union sought an 8-team weighted lottery, and Myers said the players' proposal offered to build in advantages for small market teams in the draft. So the one thing I want to say about tanking, especially in baseball, is can you really differentiate? So the league wants a 3-team lottery. Can you really differentiate the 3 worst teams in baseball? Not really. Can you differentiate the 3 worst teams in baseball as organizations? Not really. There's a lot of variables that go on there. There's a lot of players, a lot of positions. There's a lot of minor league depth you got to consider as well. Like, how do you really rank, truly, how do you really rank the 3 worst teams in your game? So to kind of the league's credit, if you're the Baltimore Orioles and you finish 1 game worse than the Kansas City Royals, for example, just throwing that out there, Royals, Rockies, Diamondbacks, you name it, they finish 1 game worse. Can you really determine who's worse at that point? Not really. So maybe a lottery system does work in that sense. I personally am not a fan of lottery systems. I've never been a fan of lottery systems. I think that you should just make it something that's very concrete, that's just backed by numbers, something that you can hang your hat on. That's literally like worst to first in order. And I think that's just makes the most sense to me. The worst team should get the first pick. But if you want to go a lottery system, maybe the union's kind of like on my thought process there. Like, why do it with the 3 teams? Why not do it with 10 teams? 10 teams might make more sense because, let's face it, if a team is trying to tank per se, you're trying to limit tanking. You want to, at that point, give a lottery system to 10 teams, because then it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you tank or not. Really, it doesn't matter if you tank or not. Everybody gets the same amount of odds to get the first pick, right? It doesn't matter. There's no reason to tank. At that point, it now gives you incentive to make as much money as you possibly can to bring your fans into your ballpark, even if your team stinks. Right? You're trying your best to make as much money as you can to finish out the season. Like, for example, if a team like, let's say the Kansas City Royals again, for example, let's just pick on them. So if the Royals went into July and they were contending for a playoff spot, maybe a division, and they lost the majority of their games in the final 2 weeks of July, right? So they're kind of out of it at that point. They're not really looking to trade for anybody because the status of their team says we're not making the playoffs. We should probably trade away our guys, our veteran pieces, and try to acquire some youth here, right? Some people could see that as, oh, you're tanking, right? Well, not really. You were getting ready to compete for a playoff spot. Trading away all your pieces to fetch some value, it could be seen as tanking. Some people, like myself, would not see that as tanking. So ultimately, is your team going to be bad in the second half? Probably. You'll probably continue that losing streak. Probably slide right into that top 10 in the lottery system. I don't know. It forces you to make a strategy as an organization, and I just don't think that lends itself to tanking. So, do you go the lottery route? I say no. I'm personally against lottery routes, but if you're going to do it, 8 teams, might as well get it to 10. I know that the MLB is saying 3, so if you want to get that to 10, it's probably not likely to pass. Paying players earlier, that's something that, of course, we talked about that earlier. Expanding the playoffs. This is a huge one for me, personally. This is a huge one. This is where I'm going to get on my big diatribe, my big, long monologue about this. So the MLB proposed a 14-team plan, and the MLB Players Association countered with a 12-team plan. And this is what I really didn't understand. So you have one 8-team division and another 7-team division. That's 15 teams, not 12. So maybe I'm dumb. Maybe I'm stupid. I couldn't figure it out. I get it. The league is 30 teams and you're splitting it in half. I don't get it. Somebody explain it to me in the comments section because it didn't make sense to me. Maybe they typed it up wrong. Maybe Jeff Passan typed it up wrong in the document there. But Expanding the playoffs is a huge one for me. Because personally, I think when you're talking about expanding the playoffs, I agree with that. I think you should expand the playoffs. I think actually you should shorten down the season. You should take that 162 game season and cut that down by like 40 games. Get it to 120 games. You're basically cutting the season down by a month. Really, you're starting the playoffs in September versus starting them in October. So really, you're cutting it back a month. I think that's important. I think that's really important. And people want to cite the loss of revenue. Like owners would be highly against losing 40 games because they're losing 40 games worth of revenue. It depends on how many home and away games you had at that point, right? It depends on that, but you'd be losing revenue either way. But I think if you started the playoffs sooner, you could add more games to the playoffs. And I've always been a proponent of that. Try convincing people or the casual fan that the playoffs are the most important thing in your sport. You're trying to determine the champion, right? Try to convince this to college football people as well, right? The playoffs are what matters the most. So why does baseball put so much emphasis on the regular season? 162 games. You're trying to prove to people and the fans and everybody else out there that you're the best team. In a 162 game marathon, you're the best team. Okay. So the reward apparently is that you're going to have a bye week, basically. You're going to have a bye round. You're going to play the wild card team for 5 games. The first to 3 in a 5-game series. That's your reward. And oftentimes, what we see in the playoffs, especially in baseball, the hottest team going into October is usually the team that comes out on top. It's sometimes it's the best teams, but is it the best team, or is it the best team right then and there? A lot of times in baseball, we have seen this in the past. The Florida Marlins, for example, the St. Louis Cardinals in 2006. That's the one that sticks to my mind because, of course, my Detroit Tigers were the best team all year long. They had a bad September. I remember it. They had a bad September. They didn't even win the division that year. They were not 2006 Central champions. They were the best team all year, but we didn't get it done. And we skidded into the playoffs. We won our series against the Yankees. We did our job. And then we lost in the World Series to the hottest team in baseball, the St. Louis Cardinals. So why are we in baseball? Why are we having 162 games to prove ourselves just to get into the playoffs in a 5-game series, the first of 3, and then lose in the divisional round, right? And then go to 7 in the championship series, and then go to 7 in the World Series. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. In my opinion, what I think we should be doing is, again, taking that 162, move it down to 120. That's 40 games you're missing in a season. Making up, if not more money, by having more playoff games. More fans are going to be going to the games. More fans will be paying attention at that point. Because you think about when baseball playoffs start. I mean, we start in October. And baseball fans are baseballed out. Even a guy like me who loves it, lives and breathes it. I can't watch it. I can't watch it for how many months? 6 months? Half a year? You start in April and opening day, and you end in October. Like 6 months, guys. It's half a year. Baseball goes on for half an entire calendar year. It's a long time. And people, even the casual fans, get baseballed out. And if Rob Manfred really cared about baseball and the status of baseball in the hearts and minds of new viewers and new sports watchers and trying to gain new people and grow this game, you would heavily consider shortening up the season. Because, again, attention spans and a lot of people kind of get baseballed out. We kind of have an idea at that point who the best teams are and who the worst teams are. You kind of already have an idea. So why not decrease the season? Already kind of have an idea of who's the best and who's not. and then move on to the playoffs in September and have more games in the playoffs to really dive down and drill down who is the champion, who's the best team in the league. Extend the playoff games out. Maybe expand the playoffs to 14 teams like the league wants. I would consider doing that. Heavily consider doing that. Service time manipulation, this was a big one. This again goes to the free agency part that we talked about a little earlier here. So the number of years of service time, when teams can manipulate the service time by, like Chris Bryant had a couple years ago when he was just trying to come up, in order for a team to keep him under contract longer, they would deny him. They wouldn't call him up in April or May. They'd call him up in June, or they'd call him up like late May, so they could manipulate that service time. So they don't have to waste a year of his clock. That's it's in the rules. It's the way that the game was structured. So I don't blame owners for doing that. Especially, like, can you blame owners for doing that? I can't. I can't blame an owner for doing that. Is it moral? Is it doing what's best for the fans? I don't really know. If you're trying to keep a guy around that you want to have for a long term for the fans, and of course for you with contract, I can't really blame him for it. It's like you're playing the game with the cards that have been dealt, right? So I think personally it needs to be changed. I think service time manipulation I think they need to find something, a way that can fix this. Ultimately, I don't think it's a moral thing. If a guy is ready to contribute to your team, he should be called up and be ready to contribute for your team. This article here was a perfect example. Service time manipulation debate rages as MLB teams hold off on bringing up prospects. So they showed up Chris Bryant. He was first called up in April 17th, allowed him to accumulate 171 days of service time, one day short of a full entire year. So that's brutal. It's kind of brutal, man. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's tough. It's a tough thing to talk about for sure, and see like what needs to get fixed there with service time. But back to this. Manfred talks about extreme sets of proposals, right? He calls these proposals by the Players Association radical, right? Calls them radical. Well, Mr. Manfred, I would say the things that you're talking about in regards to baseball have also been very radical, very extreme. And really, has anybody given you any sort of flack? Has anybody been in your way to stop you from doing what you've wanted to do? Not really. I think this is all a culmination of what you've deserved. I think the owners, I think the clubs, I think you guys are experiencing what you deserve. I think it's all come to roost. Hell's come to roost, basically. And I think you guys are deserving this, every bit of it. Because I think the players, on the most part, are right. I think that the things that they're proposing are what the fans want. I think what they want is what's best for the game. I think what Rob Manfred has proposed in the last few years of his commissionership have also been very extreme and very radical for the game. We're talking about baseballs being doctored up. We're talking about rule changes in the middle of a season. We're talking about all-star games that have been pulled for the political climate. Like, who is Major League Baseball to start getting into politics? Who are you guys? But, not messing with China. Of course, we don't want to talk about China. We won't mess with China, but let's focus on our own organizations within our league. Yeah, okay. Let's even go down the road of the three pitcher, the three batter minimum for relief pitchers that come into the game. The clock, the pitch clock, the speed of the game things, the runner on second base, in extra innings. Like, dude, you want to talk to the Players Association about the things that they're doing that are extreme? I got news for you, man. Look in a freaking mirror. Look in a freaking mirror. The stuff that you're doing to this game with the intention of making it more attractive to a younger audience, to a new audience, isn't doing anything. It's not doing anything to promote the game. It's not doing anything to better the game. It's not doing anything to appease a lot of the old time baseball fans, including myself, who is a millennial. I'm 33, guys. I'm 33 years old. I wouldn't say I'm old by any means, but I kind of like the way that baseball is. I'm open to universal DH. I'm open to other ideas to speed up the game, but it's not these ones. And I've got my own ideas that I can tell you guys about in another video, but it ain't this. It ain't this. These are radical things that you're doing as a commissioner, and you're going to go fire back at the MLBPA for suggesting the things that they're suggesting, such as getting players paid earlier. Players are the main reason why this game can grow. Players are the reason why this game can grow. Marketing your players is a way for this game to grow. Allowing a guy like Mike Trout to kind of let his personality get out there is a way for the game to grow. Allowing a guy like Tim Anderson to allow that personality to come out will allow the game to grow. The bat flips will allow the game to grow. The entertainment factor will allow the game to grow. But a lot of you guys that are inside these organizations, you want to put a damper on that. Just like you want to put a damper on paying players earlier, expanding the playoffs in a certain way, offering players arbitration earlier, free agency, allowing players to reach free agency and change teams earlier. I think, if anything, if you're talking about entertainment as well, when you're talking about entertainment, what's more entertaining than the offseason? What's more entertainment than learning about a superstar that doesn't want to be playing for his team any longer, right? To go jump ship and find somewhere else to go. I get it. I understand that grooming players in an organization is hard to do. It happens all the time in business, by the way. It happens a lot in business. Businesses put a lot of effort into their people. And then those people, sometimes they leave for better jobs. They feel like they're qualified now. They leave for better jobs. They want to get paid for what they've learned, right? And if that animosity is not felt back towards them, like they don't feel appreciated for the growth that they've had and what they've given you, they're likely to leave you. So you gotta give a little bit to the players here. You have to. You got to give a little bit to the players. The players are the reason your game is going to grow. You guys in the suits and ties, you can worry about the financials. You can worry about all that. You can do the things and pull the strings behind the curtain and play Wizard of Oz in order to get people in the seats. But ultimately, what it comes down to is the players. People don't understand. The casual fans, when they go to the ballpark, they don't understand the rigmarole and the back office parts of baseball. They want to come see the players. They want to come see Tim Anderson. They want to come see Trevor Story. They want to come see Nolan Arenado. They want to go come see Javi Baez, Chris Bryant, Buster Posey, who's ended up retiring now, Marcus Stroman. Want to see those guys. Want to see those guys. We don't want those guys pissed off. Mike Trout, Shohei Ohtani. Can't forget those guys. Vlad Guerrero Jr. Want to see those guys. We don't want those guys unhappy. We want to see them play baseball. That's why baseball in the 90s was so much fun for me. I wanted to see Sammy Sosa hit home runs. I wanted to see Mark McGwire hit home runs. I wanted to see Ken Griffey Jr. chase those guys with non-steroid use, trying to chase those guys in the home run race. I watched for the players. And ultimately it comes down to appeasing the players. And I think that when you guys are making millions and billions of dollars hand over fist, you got to give them a little something. Revenue sharing, paying players earlier, competitive balance tax, arbitration, you name it, service time manipulation. I think that the owners have gotten away with a lot in Major League Baseball. And I think it's time to throw the players a little bit of a bone, especially when you're trying to grow the game appropriately. I think you got to listen to the players at this point. I think they're the ones doing it. You got to listen to the fans, the players, people who are at the ground level trying to make this game better. And the owners and the millionaires, you guys have been sitting on that for a long, long time and kind of taking advantage of the systems that have been in place for baseball for a long, long time. So, guys, that's all that I have for you today. Like I said, I have another video coming out in the next few days talking about the changes that I would make to the MLB, and hopefully those changes, maybe they might catch some fire. They might get some traction. Maybe a lot of people have already thought about these ideas, but my ideas, I think, would better baseball in the long run because I'm very passionate about baseball. I love baseball. It is my life. I love it, love it, love it, love it. I can't stand to see the things that are happening to it. Sucks. So let me know in the comment section what you guys thought about this video. What do you think about the MLB lockout? Whose side are you on? Are you on the owner's side? Are you on the player's side? You know, might be no wrong answer out there, but I'm anxious to hear what you guys have to say. So guys, leave a like if you like this thing. I will see you in the next one. As always, have a good weekend and peace.